Hello, my name is Cameron Burrell, and I would like to welcome everyone to today's WED Talk, how to create human connection in a hybrid workforce. Before we kick off our WED Talk today, I would like to introduce the Director of Workforce and Economic Development for the County of Bucks, Billy Barnes. Thank you for joining us today, Billy.
Thank you for the introduction, Cameron. Good morning, everyone. I'm Billy Barnes, Executive Director of Workforce and Economic Development. On behalf of the Bucks County Workforce Development Board and the county, I want to welcome everyone to WED Talks. Today's discussion focuses on creating human connection in a hybrid workforce. Recent studies show that 70% of employees are disengaged. With less than 1/3 of employees feeling connected to their teams, how do you create a company culture where every employee belongs and thrives? Our WED Talk presenter is here to share data-driven solutions for attracting and retaining top talent, increasing employee engagement, and turning the great resignation into the great reconnection. Let's introduce our expert who will lead today's discussion. Back to you, Cameron.
Thanks, Billy. It is my pleasure to introduce this morning's WED Talk expert, someone who lights up every room he's in. Adam Smiley Poswolsky is an internationally renowned keynote speaker, workforce belonging expert, and best-selling author of 3 books, including most recently, Friendship in the Age of Loneliness. Smiley regularly speaks at world's most innovative companies and has advised heads of state and foreign leaders about company culture, workforce belonging, and the future of work. Smiley's TED Talk has been viewed 2 million times and he has spoken in front of 200,000 people in 25 countries. Smiley's work has been featured in Harvard's Business Journal Review, Fast Company, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and the World Economic Forum. Welcome to WED Talk, Smiley.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that warm introduction. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for taking time out of your morning, out of your busy day, for this important conversation. Before I begin, if you could just throw in the chat your name, where you're calling in from this morning, what you had for breakfast. Don't lie. If you didn't have a green juice, don't put green juice in there. Be real. I just had a couple blueberries to get going here at 6 in the morning Pacific time. So I just wanted to welcome all of you. Before I start, I just wanted to share a story that kind of gets at the heart of what I want to talk about today. This idea of human connection in a hybrid workforce. And I think the key word that we need to pay attention to in this new normal of hybrid work. And that word is belonging. The word gets thrown around a lot, but I don't think we really know exactly what it means. And I think I learned what this word belonging means way back in high school, over 25 years ago. So I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. You can't really see here on the webinar, but I'm not that big of a guy. I wanted to play a sport my freshman year of high school. I wasn't that good at football. Football wasn't going to happen. I'm not a big guy. I also wanted to play soccer. Our team was like the best team in the state. Also wasn't going to happen. So I went out for one of the only sports left, which was cross country. I didn't even know what the sport was. I assumed it was skiing, but it's actually just running. You go run 3 miles or 5 miles or 10 miles on the weekend. So we're a couple weeks into practice and we're doing a hill workout, which is exactly what it sounds like. We're just running up and down a hill over and over and over again. So I'm kind of running up and down the hill, smiling, enjoying myself, being like, this is great. I'm getting exercise. And my coach starts yelling at me. He's this hard-nosed Boston guy. He starts yelling at me. What the hell are you doing smiling, kid? Stop smiling. Stop puking. Stop puking, kid. Stop puking. And after that, the team nicknamed me Smiley. I was one of the slowest kids on the team. I never placed at any of our races, but I was kind of our cheerleader. I'd give pep talks before the races. I'd get us pumped up before every meet. And I ran cross country and indoor and outdoor track all 12 seasons. I actually became captain my senior year, but I was still the slowest kid on the team, even though I was captain, but I had a role to play, right? And I think at its core, that's what belonging is, the sense that everyone has a role to play. Everyone matters regardless of their title, their seniority, how long they've been with us, if they joined our company, our organization, our team 2 weeks ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, or 20 years ago. Everyone matters. Everyone has a role to play. And I think that you get to the workplace and you don't often feel that way. And let me just say, if you felt that way or currently feel that way or know someone on your team or have someone in your family that's felt that way, you're not alone. Let me repeat that. You are not alone. The truth is that 70% of Americans right now are disengaged with their jobs. 70%. 1/5 of those people are so disengaged, they're actively undermining their coworkers' work. So they're literally getting paid by the company they work for to screw things up for that company. Now, that should be a concern to all of you that are leaders and managers, because it means that sometimes there's people on your team that shouldn't be there. But I really think it should be a concern to everyone, because it means that millions of people are waking up every day unhappy, unfulfilled, sometimes depressed, not showing up fully for themselves, for their colleagues, for their coworkers, for their teams, for the world at large. Now, this statistic around disengagement means a lot to me personally, because a few years ago, I was one of those 70%. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, working a job that on paper was perfect. I had a pretty good job, I had a pretty good salary, I had healthcare, I had benefits, job security. I'd go to happy hour and tell everyone my job title, and they were like, oh my God, that's so cool, let me get your business card. My boss was impressed, my friends were impressed, my parents were impressed. Everything was perfect about this job except for one tiny but slightly important thing. I was miserable. How did I know I was miserable? Every single morning when my alarm clock would go off at 6 in the morning, I'd feel this shooting pain go up and down my back. Felt it when I got out of bed, when I brushed my teeth, when I put on my suit and tie, when I took the bus to work, when I scanned my ID badge in at the office and rode the elevator up to the 8th floor, when I was sitting at my desk typing memos and talking points, when my boss would email me every single night on my BlackBerry. We used Blackberries back then, at 10 p.m. and again at 4 in the morning. The pain was so bad it actually turned into shingles on my side. Shingles is gross. Shingles is a nerve disease often related to stress, common among people over the age of 75, not 20-somethings like I was at the time. And I was spending a lot of time, like many people, especially young people, but frankly, like everyone these days, on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, overdosing on FOMO, fear of missing out, worried about what my friends were doing. So there was my friend going to business school, and I was like, I should go to business school. There was a friend becoming a teacher. I should become a teacher. There was a friend, she was opening up her own food truck, and I was like, yes, I should open up a food truck. I'm not a great chef, and I'm like the world's worst driver. Bad idea to get in a car with me. And I see a photo of a buddy of mine that I'd gone to college with. He had already graduated from one of the top law schools in the country, got this amazing job at a corporate law firm in New York City, was making a ton of money, had a penthouse apartment in New York. And I see a photo of him on Instagram traveling with his girlfriend in Peru, and he's proposing at sunset in front of Machu Picchu. And I'm like, man, like this guy, he's got it all figured out. He's got this amazing job. He's making all this money. Like, I hate my job. I hate my life. Like, I can't even get a date on Tinder or OkCupid. My life is over. I'm a goner. I'm never going to make it. And it was actually only when I spent a little time off of social media that I was able to find a little bit more meaning, find more belonging, find more connection in my work. So today I'm just going to talk about a few lessons I learned on my journey that can help you think about creating that connection, creating that belonging, both for yourself and for the people that you lead and for the people every day. I think that's what this is really about, showing up for the people around you. So the first lesson I learned on my journey is that you have to find believers. You have to surround yourself with people that believe in the beauty of your dreams. Because when I was back in DC, I used to come home every night to my roommate, Dan. And I'd be like, Dan, I don't really like this job. I want to do something different. I've always wanted to live in California. I've always wanted to write books. I've always wanted to support creatives and entrepreneurs and people building incredible companies and leading really purpose-driven organizations. Dan would kind of look at me, roll his eyes, take a swig of beer, take another swig of beer, and say, Smiley, suck it up, man. Everyone hates their job. It's part of life. I was like, suck it up. I was 28 at the time, which is old, but not like that old. I didn't want to spend the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life depressed. But the truth is, the majority of the world thinks like Dan, right? The majority of people are like, you know what? It's your job. You're not supposed to really like it. You're not supposed to find belonging and connection at work. You do it, have a beer after work, go to happy hour, have the weekend, go and do it all again on Monday. Well, then I went to this program where I met believers. It was called Starting Block, the Starting Block Institute for Social Innovation. It brings together people that are interested in using business for good. This idea that yes, businesses can and of course must make money. That's why they're businesses, but they also must give back. They also must have an impact on society. And at Starting Block, I met believers. I met people like Debbie Sterling. Debbie was starting Goldie Blocks, which is a toy company that teaches young girls to become engineers. When Debbie was one of the only female engineering students at Stanford University, she realized that all of the toys that teach building skills and design skills and spatial recognition skills are actually built and designed for the way that young boys learn, right? And that all of the toys that are out there for young girls were the pink aisle, Barbie dolls, right? If you think about it, Thomas the Tank Engine and Bob the Builder. And she's like, I'm going to create a toy that teaches young girls they can become engineers. I met people like Ted. Ted had started MoneyThink, which is an organization in Chicago that teaches financial literacy and entrepreneurship to urban youth. I met people like Tom. Tom had started Rising Tide Car Wash in Florida, which is a small business that employs people with autism. So I met people like Debbie and Ted and Tom, and they're like, wait a second, Smiley, wait a second. Like, you want to move across the country, you want to start writing books, you want to start supporting entrepreneurs and building incredible companies. Like, you have to do that. If you don't do that, who the hell's going to do it? Crazy thing happens when you find believers, you also find accountability. Now, the next lesson I learned is that you have to stop comparing yourself to others and start caring for others. Stop comparing yourself to others and start caring for others. Because I went back and I interviewed my friend, the baller corporate lawyer. I was like, man, you got it all figured out. You got this amazing job. You got this sweet penthouse apartment in New York. You're married. Like, what's your secret? What am I doing wrong? And you know what he told me? After 3 years of law school, landing a job at one of the top corporate law firms in the world, he was miserable in his job as a corporate lawyer. He was still happily married, but he was going to go back to graduate school at the age of 30 to become a high school social studies teacher, a history teacher, which is really great for him. But what's the lesson there? The grass is always greener. We think everyone has it figured out because their highlight reels on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on everything looks so beautiful. Everyone's figuring it out. Everyone's a little bit lost. Everyone's looking for more belonging and meaning in their life. And I came across this beautiful book called Man's Search for Meaning. If you've read this book, just let me know in the chat. It's a really, really beautiful book. It's one of the best books ever written, in my opinion. Also one of the best-selling books ever written by a man named Viktor Frankl. Who is Viktor Frankl? He was a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust. He was from Austria. He was living in a Nazi concentration camp during pretty much everyone around him was being killed, including his own friends, including his own family members, including his own wife. And he was talking to people about what allows them to go on in the face of near certain death. If you weren't going to die next week, you would die in 2 weeks, in a month, you were going to die. And he writes in this book that being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets themselves by giving themselves to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human they are. So that meaning and belonging come not from what we've been taught by society, accumulating wealth and status and power. No, but from giving it away, from love, from service, from compassion. And this doesn't mean that we're all going to go quit our jobs and go work for a charity or go work for a church or something. That's not what I'm saying. Those are great things to do, but I am saying it means we have to approach our work, how we show up, our leadership, our business from a place of love, of service, of compassion, allowing the people around us to show up and share their gifts with the world and with each other on the team. And what I think this looks like on a day-to-day basis is not the perfect job or the perfect team or the perfect organization. That's not attainable. It's not about perfection. It's about more like alignment, helping the people around you and yourself find a little bit more alignment in their day-to-day work. How can they align their unique gifts with the impact they're trying to have, surround themselves with a community that lights them up inside and allows them to care for others and get closer and closer to what alignment looks like, and notice that that changes over time. And that's what we're trying to do here. And if we were all to fill out this Venn diagram right now on this call, we've had 40, 100 completely different definitions of alignment because we're all very different. Now, what does this mean in the context of kind of the current landscape of the past 3 years of the pandemic and this huge shift to hybrid work since 2020? I think what we've learned is some really interesting data. First of all, the majority of workers prefer hybrid. We're not going back to the way things were, right? Yes, we're starting to go back into the office, but we're not going back to the 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 in the office anymore for at least for folks that are working in tech or knowledge workers. That's not going to happen. There's obviously so many jobs where people have to be on site full time. 53% of employees now will never work for an employer that doesn't offer work from anywhere or hybrid policies, never. And I think something that we didn't talk about a lot is that this idea that 86% of working mothers will now leave a job for opportunity that better supports their work-life needs, meaning it took a pandemic for us to start listening to the needs of women in the workplace and working parents in the workplace. Let me repeat that. It took a pandemic for us to start listening to the needs of many women in the workplace and working parents in the workplace who were talking about how unsustainable work was in terms of always having to commute, always having to go in the office and balancing other tasks and responsibilities. And now we're talking about things that people were saying weren't working for a long time. So I think actually a silver lining of the pandemic is that this flexibility has become not just nice to have, it is a must have. But on the flip side of people really being excited about hybrid, right? This idea that, yeah, of course, commuting for half an hour to an hour a day, sitting in traffic kind of sucks and people are happier at home. They're also more burnt out than ever, right? So people are saving time a day. They're saving that hour that they're not commuting, but they're spending it working. Work from home has actually increased the hours people spent working by up to 30%, right? So, and that's not healthy either because people are always online. There's never shutting down. They're never closing that computer. They're always on Teams or Slack or Zoom or whatever it is. Their workday doesn't end. So yes, they prefer it, but they're also really struggling. And we have to talk about proximity bias because we have a situation now where work from home employees, people that are not going into the office as often, are 12% less likely to receive a promotion and nearly 40% less likely to receive a bonus. So we need to make sure that we're creating a workplace that works for everyone, whether people are coming in 5 days a week, 3 days a week, a couple days a month, or working completely remotely. So what I think this is really about is in this new landscape, hybrid is really about trust. I think early on it was, are people working? Let's just monitor them and see if they're actually online or instead if they're shopping or on Instagram or on TikTok. And actually organizations that implemented monitoring technology actually reported higher levels of employee turnover because people did not feel trusted. That's the last thing you're going to do to encourage trust is to have your organization essentially spying on you. And we have the situation where we talked a lot about the Great Resignation and quiet quitting and so many people being 1 foot out the door. In fact, in last year, 52% of Gen Z and millennials were likely to consider changing their employers in 2022, but we'll see how that shifts in this new year with so many layoffs happening and the new economic reality, shifting that power balance, which has definitely shifted to the employee if some of that shifts back to the employer. But leaders are actually still hesitant about hybrid. So even as organizations are investing heavily in hybrid, only 11% of them say that their policy is permanent and will not change. So organizations still in some ways have that foot in the door saying, we're going to go back to the office full time. It's just a matter of time. And that's really, the data shows that that's not going to happen. We're not going back to the way things were. So I really think that in this new landscape, hybrid is not where we work. It's not work from home a couple days and work from the office a couple days, not how many days. That's part of it. It's actually how we connect. It's how we connect when we're together in person and how we connect when we're working in a distributed workforce, remotely, virtually, or somewhere in between. It's how we work. It's not just where we work. So people call this whole time the Great Resignation because so many people were rethinking the place of work in their life. But I think it's the opportunity is for the great reconnection because so many people are disconnected from their colleagues. We've learned a lot from this time that small meetings actually work really well on video, but large meetings are much more effective in person once you're getting together more than 5 to 10 people. That work from home is actually really good for hard work, just kind of getting your day-to-day job responsibilities done, but the office is best for soft work, which I think is just human work, getting to know people, getting a mentor, learning about your colleagues, collaboration, coming up with new ideas, innovation. Even though employees want to work from home more, 66% of them agree that their organization is more innovative when employees are in person in the office. And we also just have a lack of norms. So 40% of hybrid employees say their biggest challenge is knowing when and why to come into the office. Often they're going in and their team isn't even there, or their boss or their supervisor isn't in the office. And they're like, why did I just spend 35 minutes driving here when my boss isn't here? I should have just been home, right? So we have to have clear expectations. And a big one is that most employees do not feel strong connection to their coworkers. So we have this great disconnection happening right now. The cost of this, why this is so important, is we're in the midst of a loneliness epidemic, both at work and outside of work. And we were prior to the pandemic. So prior to 2-3 years of the pandemic, we were experiencing a loneliness epidemic in the United States. 2/3 of Americans were lonely in 2020 prior to the pandemic. Even before the pandemic, 2/3 of Americans were lonely, and it's only gotten worse. And loneliness costs companies tons and tons of money in profit and productivity. Lonely employees have more missed days at work, more sick days, lower productivity, lower quality of work, higher risk of turnover. They cost US companies $406 billion per year. And on the flip side of that, belonging is the antidote, this idea that people can be themselves at work, that they're excited to be who they are at work, that they feel like they matter, they feel like they're part of the team. That's the antidote to that disconnection. That's the antidote to that disengagement. So when you don't have to hide your true self at work, you're 9 points less lonely on the UCLA loneliness scale. When you have a best friend at work, employees who do not have a best friend at work, there's only a 1 in 12 chance they will be engaged with their job. So a lot of times people think, oh yeah, friends, like just go to happy hour, do that on your own time. Actually, if we don't cultivate time for that within the workday, people are not going to do great work and they're not going to be connected. They're not going to be productive. It's not something that people should do on their own time, right at 6 p.m. or on Saturday morning. It's actually something we need to build in throughout the workday. When technology is used to make meaningful connections, so not just to assign more work, say, hey, I need that done by 4 o'clock, but actually to bring people together, kind of like this, to do a learning or for people to share ideas or to actually get to know each other. Folks are less lonely when people have shared goals with their colleagues, a sense of mission, a sense of vision, a sense of purpose. They know where they're going. They're less lonely. Simply picking up the phone and calling someone. So instead of just firing off an email to 6 people that's going to create more work and more back and forth, what if I just pick up the phone and ask this person a question or see if we can get to the bottom of it in a 10-15 minute conversation? And obviously spending more time with people in person. And this last one is really important, this idea of work-life balance, which is simply leaving work at work, being able to kind of shut down and take that time off, take that time with family, take that time with friends. When you're on vacation, actually shutting down and being on vacation, especially for leaders, to model what it looks like to not go home and check email and be sending emails at all hours of the night, or to not be checking email and sending email on vacation, because if you're doing that, your whole team's going to do that. So we know that when employees are low in belonging, this is data from BetterUp, they have more stress, more burnout, more loneliness, more anxiety and depression. And on the flip side, when employees have high levels of belonging, more resilience, better well-being, more personal growth, more professional growth by up to 92%. So they're literally becoming better employees. And if you're a numbers person, there's a business case for belonging. Employees who have high levels of belonging, 56% increase in their job performance, drop in turnover risk, reduction in sick days, 18 times more promotion, 170% increase in their chance that they're going to likelihood they'll recommend their employer to someone else, which results in an annual savings of $52 million for a large company. So this is a business matter. I love this definition of belonging here from Liz Fosslien and Molly West Duffy, who wrote a book called No Hard Feelings. And that is that diversity is having a seat at the table, inclusion is having a voice, and belonging is having that voice be heard. So a lot of times we think, oh yeah, we have belonging. Everyone had a chance to speak. We went around the Zoom call or the Teams call, or we went around the conference room and everyone said something. Or we did a survey, right? We did a survey and everyone did their input. Belonging is something a little bit deeper than that. It's not just did everyone have a chance to speak, it's was everyone listened to? Was everyone heard? Right? And oftentimes we're not listening to everyone, or we're listening to a couple people, maybe the most senior people in the room, the people that are getting paid the most or have the most senior title, but we're certainly not listening to everyone. Belonging is having that voice be heard. It's a sense of tell me more, or I want to listen to you, or let's continue the conversation, or I don't know, what do you think? That's what creates belonging. So some questions to think about to create more belonging for people on your team. Are you seen for your unique contributions, or are they seen for their unique contributions? Are they connected to their coworkers? Are they supported in their daily work and career development? Are they proud of their organization's values and purpose? And this is based on research by the Center for Talent Innovation. And if we dig deeper here, what we're really saying is are people listened to and accepted? Do they have time to play and learn and create with their team? Can they ask for help and receive care? Can they share their gifts and find more alignment in their work? So I really think what this means in this current landscape is, do we have the courage to give our coworkers our undivided attention at work, right? With all the things we're doing and all the distractions and all the apps and all the multitasking and everything that's happening, do we have the courage to say, I want to listen to you, right? Or I'm here for you, or what do you need right now? And I'm going to give you that minute, that 5 minutes of undivided attention so that people can find a little bit more belonging at work. So I'm going to suggest kind of 5 key shifts that I think create this with some practical tips so that you can bring this into even your meeting later today or tomorrow. Shift number 1, reimagining purpose. So I think for a long time, we've had this sense of purpose is what our mission is, or we're changing the world, or look at the impact we're having, or, you know, this is why we're so amazing, right? If you go to any kind of company website or organization's website, they're going to talk about their purpose on the front page. That's all great. And I think in this new paradigm, it's about not just we're changing the world, it's we're listening to our people. We're understanding what they're asking for, because maybe it's something that's not quite as lofty as our mission. It's just, I need childcare, or I'm going to show up late to this meeting because my kid is sick, right? Or I just got a lot going on, or I need to take off today at 2 p.m. They're going to get their work done. Probably they're still an incredible employee, but what is it that they need? It's probably something a little bit more simple. We're listening to our people and understanding that that's part of our purpose too. And people means not just people on our team, but our customers, our clients, the people we're serving, and paying attention to that. There are 4 key areas to think about when it comes to employee engagement. This is data from Harvard Business Review and the Energy Project. The first and most important is purpose. Employees who derive personal meaning from their work are 140% more engaged, 3 times as likely to stay with their organizations, the single biggest factor that determines retention. Value, employees who feel truly valued by their supervisor, feels like their supervisor truly knows them, knows why they're there, knows what they care about, right? Knows if they were out sick, can recommend a book or a podcast for them to listen to, just takes an interest in their life, in their family, cares about them. Those folks are 70% more engaged, 1.3 times as likely to stay. Renewal, employees who take a break every 90 minutes, that is to say, they leave their office or they leave their workstation at home, leave their computer, step outside, right? Get a cup of coffee, meditate, call their mom, do nothing, sit on the couch, whatever. When those folks come back, they report a 30% higher level of focus, 50% greater capacity for creative thinking, 50% higher level of health and well-being. So simply taking breaks every 90 minutes is part of this. Focus. It is incredibly difficult for people to focus on one task at a time right now at work. But in fact, only 20% of the people in this survey said they could focus on one task at a time at work, but those who could were 50% more engaged. So making sure that people know their incentives for what to focus on in a given quarter, in a given month, in a given week, in a given day, that's going to make them do much better work. Shift number 2, from talk to HR to belonging is everyone's job. I think we've used to have this sense that kind of, oh yeah, belonging is the HR team's job. It's the DEI team's job, right? It's over there. Like they're working on it. Like I have something else to do. Like that's not on me. That's over there. And I think today belonging is everyone's job. It doesn't matter if you're in HR, it doesn't matter what your title is, how senior you are. Even if you just joined a new job or an organization 2-3 weeks ago, belonging is your job too. And it's about how we show up and interact with the people around us. So Google did some research that found they were trying to figure out what makes the perfect team, what makes the most high performing team. And the first thing they looked at was where people were coming from and what country and how many degrees they had and where they went to grad school and how brilliant they were. And if we put this person from MIT and this person from Penn and this person, from Wharton or whatever, these people will all collaborate and this will be great. It actually had nothing to do, the most high performing teams, it had nothing to do with how smart people were, what country they were from, how many degrees they had, where they had worked previously. It had everything to do with what was present in people when they got in the room together. So it had to do with what happened when people actually got together. The most high performing teams exhibited high degrees of psychological safety. That is to say, team members felt safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. They felt like they could be themselves. They felt like they could ask questions. They felt like they could not know the answer and not be punished. And in fact, they saw their CEO or their director or their leader, their manager model saying, you know what? I don't know. Those simple words, I don't know, or tell me more, or what do you think? Or we got that wrong, or I messed up. Here's how we can do better. That creates an environment where other people feel like they can take risks as well, that they can mess up as well, that they can be themselves, they can be vulnerable, they can share what's on their mind, they can be real, they can be honest with their feedback, not where they think their leader knows everything, because nobody knows everything. So one of the leading scholars on team psychological safety at work, Amy Edmondson, calls this a shared team belief that it's safe for interpersonal risk-taking. When we frame work as a learning problem, it's not just about getting something done or checking boxes off our list, it's actually about learning. What did we learn from this? Where did we grow, right? What mistakes did we make? When we acknowledge where we went wrong, we acknowledge our mistakes, when we model curiosity, asking lots of questions, going deeper, being really curious and open, even if it's somebody that kind of, can bug us a little bit, or even if it's like, you really don't know the answer, or you've only been here 2 weeks, you don't know what you're talking about, still moderating curiosity and asking lots of questions, because maybe there's a glimmer of truth in what that person is saying. Shift number 3, from culture fit to transformative learning programs. So I think for a long time, we've had this sense that it's about, we're looking for culture fit, we're hiring for people, they'd be a good fit here, they'd be a good culture fit. And usually what that means is that we're hiring people that think exactly like us or look exactly like us, but we're not getting that diversity of people, diversity of opinions, diversity of ideas, and we're just kind of not pushing the ball forward. We're not getting that innovation. Whereas if we're hiring instead and creating not just an environment of culture fit, but of transformative learning, of transformative growth, of progress, that's what we're looking for. So I think an example of this is a company, Asana. They're a task management software company based in the Bay Area. And I think they consistently get ranked one of the best places to work, best company culture in tech by Fortune Magazine, Great Place to Work, Fast Company, all these places. And I think one of the reasons they get these high rankings is because they have this sense that they're treating culture like a product, something that's growing and evolving, something they're testing in the same way that we're, have products that we're selling and trying different things on A/B testing new ideas and, trying different things when it comes to an app or a product. We also should do that with our culture. Culture is not this frame set of 5 values on an 8th floor conference room that's no one's in. It's not page 407 of the employee handbook that no one's reading 407 pages of the employee handbook. It's this living, breathing thing that changes all of the time. Every time you make a new hire, every time something happens in the world like a pandemic, every time an employee is going through something really challenging at home or something is happening with their family, that's their culture is growing. So they take their values and they don't just have them, they turn them into tangible programs. So not just talking about inclusion, but tying that to specific diversity recruitment metrics, not just talking about open communication and co-creation, but having employee resource groups and real talk events where senior leadership will get up in front of the whole company and ask pretty hard-hitting questions. Not just talking about clarity, transparency, but having access to coaching and leadership training. And one of the big things that they've done in the pandemic, they hired, I think, 500 people virtually in the pandemic, and especially a lot of young people, this is their first job, and one of the things that they got most out of this of this hiring was this idea of onboarding cohorts, so that you weren't just going through onboarding by yourself, you were going through it with other people. And what people got most out of the onboarding wasn't just learning, here's what you need to know to work here, here's everything, how to set up your email, or how to set up all of the forms you need to fill out. It's that they had a cohort to go through onboarding together. They got to have that community, that connection. Onboarding was a community building exercise, not just here's what you need to know about working here, or here's how to do your job. Like, that stuff will come later. It's more about connecting with other people and saying, wait, I'm confused, or I don't understand that. Me neither. Great, let's be friends. That's the purpose of onboarding. Shift number 4, from hustle, 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 hustle to human connection. I think we've seen now where hustle culture has gotten us, and it's not a very pretty situation. So now the onus should be on human connection. The average employee is now switching between applications 1,100 times a day, sending and receiving 125 business emails a day, checking their inbox hundreds of times a day, checking email or Slack or Teams or another messaging tool every 6 minutes. I'm not sure how it's possible to get any work done when this is the case. I read a stat recently that the average CEO or leader only has 26 minutes of free time in their day. That's not possible to be a good leader when you only have 25 minutes of free time during your day. So what we need to do is take this and design for human connection within this, because we know that 85% of employees would actually be motivated to come back to the office if they could socialize with coworkers or rebuild team bonds, if the purpose of them going back was actually connection, not just work. And connection is actually how we do our best work. So I'm going to give you some practical tips for this before we get to Q&A. More one-on-ones. So just, even with your team, having regular one-on-ones weekly, especially for leaders, having that FaceTime, having office hours so that people know that they can reach you at a specific time. You always have an hour block or a 2-hour block a week where you're just open. It doesn't have to be a specific agenda item. People can come to you and have kind of curious conversations. I'm curious about this, or I want to ask a question about this. More of those face-to-face moments goes a long way. Scheduling those breaks and time for renewal, really being able to leave work at work, and especially modeling that for managers, supervisors, leaders. What does it look like to actually shut down? And yes, sometimes there's an emergency after work hours and we have to take care of it, but most of the time we do not need to check that email. We do not need to send an email at 10 p.m. Or first thing at 4 or 5 in the morning, because that person is going to feel like they need to respond. Not always talking about work. So starting a meeting with just a 1 or 2 minute for people to connect, to talk about their weekend, to talk about something that's going on. If they want to, they don't have to share if they don't want to, but we create that opportunity for people to connect on a personal, deeper level. Learning how your team does their best work, right? Understanding that some people need to be in the office more, some people need to be at home more, some people need their own space, some people are introverts. Everyone is going to be a little bit different. And yes, we cannot accommodate everyone all of the time, right? Flexibility doesn't mean that everyone gets to do everything the way they want all the time, but we can at least learn and ask and wonder how what they need to do their best work, because then we can solve some of those challenges, answer some of those things, deliver on some of that. And we could at least, a good metaphor would be almost to have like a little post-it for everyone that you work with in terms of how they do their best work, what time of day is best for them, what time of day is not best for them, how they can show up. Trying one new thing every meeting, maybe that's switching a facilitator, not the same person doesn't have to lead every meeting. Maybe that's trying an icebreaker, or just simply starting with a rose, and a bud, and a thorn, something that's working, something that's not working, something that's challenging. Switching it up, trying one new thing every meeting goes a long way. Gradually building vulnerabilities. So there's a lot of data that shows that if you really want to build a close relationship with someone, you can't just jump in and completely share everything right away. You have to build up that vulnerability, build up that trust, and sustain it over time. And it starts with personal self-disclosure. Again, we don't have to share our deepest, darkest secrets. We just have to share something about ourselves so that other people feel safe to do that as well. And when we do that, it's pretty transformative. from exponential growth to a care mindset. So we've had this growth mindset for a long time, which is great, but I actually think that nowadays it's all about a care mindset. What does it look like to simply care about the people around us? So we have to take well-being seriously. 53% of employees are more likely to prioritize their health and well-being over their work now than before the pandemic. Burnout is on the rise. So when people say that they're burned out or say that they're tired or say that they need a day to take care of stuff, let's give it to them. Because if employees are not showing up as their best selves, how the hell are they going to do their best work? Thrive interviews. So we've had this idea of the exit interview for a long time, where people on their last day tell you everything that isn't working. It's like, well, you should have told me this 6 months ago. We could have done something. And Adam Grant talks about the idea of a stay interview. What would make you stay? And I'm wondering, what does it look like? What would make you thrive, right? What is it like to interview people and say, what would make you thrive here? And yes, we can't change everything, but let's have those conversations. Intergenerational co-leadership, where we're pairing early talent or more young talent that's hungry, that's looking for more opportunities, pairing that person with someone that has 10, 15, 20 years more experience to co-lead a project, to work together. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get that younger person saying, wow, I have so much to learn. It's like, yeah, you do have so much to learn. You're 24 years old, right? And then you're going to get the older person also saying, whoa, this person is seeing the world in a completely different way. They represent the future of our company, the future of our employees, the future of our customers, our clients. I really should understand what they're thinking, what they're paying attention to, so we can work together. Cross-organization mentorship. So you're giving people opportunities to find mentors, not necessarily with the person they work with every day, not necessarily just with their boss, but other folks in the organization. So they're going to feel like they have more advocates, they have more people that are excited about their work. Small win parties, sharing mistakes, and doubt clubs. So this idea that we don't have to wait for a huge kickoff or a huge hitting some huge numbers to have a party. We can actually just celebrate small wins along the way and savor those moments. And we can also share mistakes and have doubt clubs where people are getting together and sharing their doubts or sharing questions that they have, so they feel that psychological safety. Frequent feedback and affirmations and praise. Everyone needs more affirmations and more praise. So whether that's a Slack channel or a Teams channel for people sharing just, hey, I just want to give a shout out to this person. They did a great job in the meeting. That project was great. They did a great job at the recent sales meeting, whatever it is, or they did a great job interacting with the client that came in, whatever that is, giving those folks a little bit more love. And I'm going to end here with a story before we get to Q&A that I think highlights exactly what it is I'm trying to get at here. So I had made this big move across the country. I moved from the East Coast, where I grew up, and spent the first 30 years or so of my life to California, and moved to San Francisco, where I live now. And I was biking home one night. Remember, I don't drive that much. I was biking home on my way to get some tacos before going home to get some tacos for dinner. So I'm just biking along, minding my own business. And all of a sudden, this guy bikes alongside me and says, "My name's BURNOUT. I'm from Spain." I was like, I don't know who the hell this person is. I kind of bike away. He keeps biking alongside me. He says, "My name's BURNOUT. I'm from Spain." I was like, "Leave me alone. Who are you?" He keeps biking alongside me and says, "My name's BURNOUT. I'm from Spain. I'm a UX UI designer, user experience designer. I live in Barcelona. I'm looking for a design job here in the Bay Area because there's no jobs in Spain right now. There's a lot of unemployment. I'm really looking for work." And I said to him, "Oh, interesting, Barcelona. What a beautiful city. I got to visit that there once. I had a friend that was living there. It's absolutely beautiful. I love that city. One of my favorite cities in the world." And he said, "Oh yeah, Barcelona, it's great." And he asked me, "Well, what are you up to these days? What are you working on?" And I tell him I'm writing a book about people trying to find more meaning, more belonging, more connection in their work. They're lost. I'm trying to help them. And he says, "Oh, well, do you have a cover designer yet?" And I said, "No." He says, "Well, go home, check out my website, check out my work, and maybe we can do something together." So I go home. I get tacos first, obviously. Then I go home and I check out this guy BURNOUT's website. I was like, whoa, this guy's really good. He's a pretty good designer. He had samples of his work and his whole portfolio on the site. It's like, this guy's really great. So I post on Facebook later that night. Just met this crazy weirdo BURNOUT while I was biking home tonight on my way home to get some tacos. He hails from Spain, from Barcelona. He's looking for a job here in the Bay Area. If you know of anything, let him know. A few minutes later, my buddy Yi comments on the Facebook thread, oh, BURNOUT should meet with my friend. They're doing this mobile startup in Palo Alto. There's like 5 of them. I don't think they have a lead designer yet. Maybe they can work together. A couple weeks later, BURNOUT meets with the team. He gets hired to be the lead designer for this tiny mobile startup in Palo Alto. He gets a work visa to stay in the United States, which is a very big deal because there was so much unemployment in his home country. He sends me a quick thank you note, but a couple years go by, I don't really hear from the guy. And then like all of a sudden, 2.5 years later, I get a text message from BURNOUT out of the blue, Smiley, I'm taking you out to dinner anywhere you want to go. I was like, sweet, I'd love to get taken out to dinner. I'm writing a book. It turns out it's pretty hard to be an author. I'm broke, like free food, like let's go. So we go out to this nice meal. We get a bottle of wine. I'm like, what's going on, man? Why you take me out to dinner? Turns out that the mobile startup he had been working for had just been acquired by Yahoo for $80 million. He's the 5th employee at the company. He was paid mostly in equity. He definitely could afford to take me out to dinner. And he says to me, Smiley, Smiley, thank you. This wouldn't have happened if not for you. And I said to BURNOUT, no, man, thank you. Because this guy talked to a random stranger in a city he didn't live in a country he wasn't from, on a bicycle. Like, who the hell does that? So I think what I'm getting at here is that we have to create a culture where people can make those big, bold asks, right? Where they can channel that inner BURNOUT, right? And if we want to create connection and human connection in this hybrid workforce, we have to allow people to go outside their comfort zone and ask for what they need. And we're not going to be able to say yes all of the time, but we create that culture where people feel safe to make those asks, that put themselves out there to ask for what they need, to share their dreams, to share what they want to accomplish, to share what isn't working for them, and create a culture where people really feel like they can be seen and heard at work. And I think if we do that, we will create an environment where human connection can really thrive wherever we're working, in person, remote, in between, in this new hybrid landscape. So with that, I want to make sure that we have time for questions, and thank you again to Bucks County for having me. It was a true honor to be with all of you today. Please connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to take the conversation further. I think we got some questions coming in.
Yeah, perfect, Smiley. We had some folks, we had some coffee, sausage patty, yogurt, blueberries. So those were earlier in the thread. Rachel Delinka mentioned Viktor Frankl, said he's amazing. So glad you brought him up. She also would love to connect on LinkedIn.
Excellent.
So if we could, if you have specific questions for Smiley, if you could type those into the little drop-down menu in the question feature tab, that would be fantastic. We'll give it, I know oftentimes it's crickets, and then once one person types it, then the floodgates open. So we'll give it just a minute here to see what questions come in.
Yeah, and feel
Smiley
free.
adds,
Go ahead,
yes.
please.
Yeah, we had, so David said, thank you for the wonderful presentation. Is it possible for us to have a slide deck sent out for reference? I'd love to share this with my team.
Yes, I'll get Andrea a PDF of the slides that you can share with folks.
Perfect. Thank you, Smiley. Thank you, David. And then just as a reminder,
Thank you, David.
Everybody who attended will also GoToWebinar will automatically send out a recording here in the next day or so as well. So if you have some folks, sounds like we'll have 2 options, one where they can watch the recording and also have the slide deck as well.
All right, please join us for the next WED Talk on Wednesday, March 8th. Security Awareness Advocate James McQuiggan will discuss the key principles of cyber hygiene and how to implement best practices for staying clean online. Look for a registration link coming soon on the calendar of events page at www.buckscounty.gov/PA career link. Thanks everyone and have a great day.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Smiley.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy day for this. It's great to be with all of you.
Of course. Thanks,
All right.
Adam.
Take care. Great content.